Hi, my name is Elaine Sanchez. I am founder of caregiverhelp.com, and I have with me again today Brenna Baucum. Brenna is a certified financial planner, and her company is Collective Wealth Planning. And we have been talking about in this series life after caregiving and going solo. And there are so many topics that I think are critically important and will be so helpful to people who find themselves in this position that they've lost a spouse or they've lost a parent and they're trying to figure out where do we go from here? What do we need to do? And we've talked about everything from planning to prevent chaos after death to now we are in the stage of looking at our own financial and estate planning after a loved one dies. And so, Brenna, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative of your insights and experience and expertise. So, after a spouse passes, what legal or estate updates should someone be thinking about? What do
Mm.
we need to do now? What do we need to update for ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. In most cases, if it was a spouse who you were doing caregiving for and has now passed, everything needs to be updated because in most cases, we
Yeah.
have our partner as
Yeah.
our primary beneficiary, our
Yes.
partner as our successor trustee or our co-trustee,
Yes.
our partner as our power of attorney. And while those documents typically do have, if they're not available, then go to this person. If they're not
Mhm.
available, go to this person.
Mhm.
What a valuable time to
Mhm.
update and say, actually, I want to reevaluate how is my nephew, who I named as the backup executor, how are they doing in life? Do they have a ton
Right.
of kids and their own business and no way they can handle this? Or, worst case scenario, have they fallen off the wagon and our family is really working with them through recovery and we don't want to put this on their shoulders, right? I've never met a perfect family who has everybody is a shining example launched out into the world and it's all fine. Everybody has their
Yeah.
challenges,
Yeah.
whether they're positive or unfortunate. So I think that it's so important. And you shared a personal story in our one of our sessions about the importance of beneficiary
Yes.
changes.
Yes.
And I think that is the one that sometimes gets overlooked.
Yes.
Because oftentimes, if you visit with your estate planning attorney and you say, "Hey, I'm ready to update these documents," that part of their wheelhouse is updating your will, updating a trust, updating power of attorney, a HIPAA release. Those are important
Mhm.
things to have on
Mhm.
file too.
Mhm.
And how do we make sure these are titled appropriately?
Mhm. Mhm.
Accounts with beneficiary designations, usually you're on your own to go update those.
Yes.
And so whether you if you have a great team, they'll be talking to each other and say,
Yes.
"Hey, financial advisor, I'm the attorney. Here is the documentation. Here's how those beneficiaries should read now based on my work with our
Yes.
mutual client." But if not, that's on you. And that I think can sometimes get lost in the shuffle,
Mhm.
as you unfortunately experienced
Yes.
in those updates. So
Yes.
yeah, there's quite a bit to do. And I think it's a good goal to say maybe within the next 6 to 12 months after your loss, working through those documents sooner if you have the capacity. But
Mhm. Mhm.
you just we never know how long we have. So
That is so true. So then when you look at these documents, the estate planning documents, so that the things are people need a will or a trust, they need the durable power of attorney,
mhm.
and they need the advance directive.
Yes, yep.
And so we talked earlier about the power of attorney. Let's talk about that again because I think this is something that is really important in terms of who is going to handle your finances if you cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, and knowing that you have agency and choice to make those decisions now
Mhm.
about the financial side
Mm-hmm.
and the health side, and that those two don't have to be the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I see people
Right.
say, my daughter is the executor, my power of attorney for healthcare and for finance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear there's kind of two sides of this. There's one side is, well, I'm kind of worried she might pull the plug early because she wants the inheritance. She might not take care of me. And in that case, I always say, not the right person if you have trust concerns about that.
And conversely, I have joked with my daughter about, I don't think she would let them pull the plug because I know how heart-wrenching it has been for them to decide to put down a pet,
Bingo.
you
That's
know?
the other side of it is how
That's the
that
other
they
side.
might not have the wherewithal to call it
Yeah,
like it is.
yeah.
And so I think it's really important to think through those really carefully of
Hmm.
and sharing this information with that person in advance of
Yes,
what it means. What does it
yes,
mean to be an executor? What does it mean to be a power of attorney?
yes,
What are my responsibilities? And getting rather than a default consent, getting affirmative consent from
yes.
them of yes, I understand the role and I am willing to do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's a really important conversation that most people really don't like to have, but it's
No,
so
it's
important.
uncomfortable, and it is hard from the perspective of the person who's going to be responsible to start those conversations. And we do talk about that in our Ducks in a Row segment
Mhm.
about how to start these difficult conversations because I tried to get my Aunt Jean to tell me, and she would not,
Mhm.
and I pestered her over and over and over, and she finally gave me a little baggie that had some index cards with her Medicare number, her government retirement, number,
Mhm.
and her banks and bank accounts, and that was all she would give me.
Yeah.
And when I called the attorney after she died, I said, I don't know what Jean had or who she wants to go to. And he said, she wouldn't tell me either.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it took me a year,
Mm.
and you had to go through those grocery bags, behind the decorative screens and then just wait until statements came in.
Mm.
To figure out where things were. And so it's so important to push people, and I know this is uncomfortable, but to talk to them about, and I always say to people, you start by saying, I need to have an uncomfortable conversation with you, and just
Call it what it
put
is.
it out there. And then just, I am concerned that there may come a time when you might need help managing your health care or your finances. And if and when that happens, I would really, really appreciate it if you would let me know what you would want me to do.
Mm.
And if there are siblings involved and you say, we can't agree on where to go to lunch.
Yeah.
So,
Don't put us all in charge.
yeah,
Right.
don't let us make the decisions on who gets what and whether or not we continue or stop life support. We need to know what you want so that we can honor your wishes. And I think I did have that conversation with Jean, and that's how I got the little baggie. Some people
Uh-huh.
are going to comply and some aren't. But you need to know that if you are going to be the person in that position to make those decisions, you need to have some information.
Absolutely. And a contact person, like we've talked about
Yes,
before, how
yes,
valuable is it to have that
yes,
point person? And
yes,
if you're in the position of, okay, now I need to rethink through my
yes,
personal estate plan, then the more of that thought processing you
yes,
can do before you sit down with the attorney,
yes.
the cheaper your bill is going to be, right? They will be very
Exactly
happy to
right.
walk you through that, which is fine if that's what you need. But some of this stuff, like there's only so much they can help you think through in terms of who is this person? What
Right,
name are we putting here, right? So
right.
being able to explore that a little bit on your own before you go in is really valuable.
Yes, yes, it is. So, real quick, let's talk about the difference between a will and a trust.
Sure. Yeah. So I recommend that everyone have a will,
Mm-hmm,
even if you have a trust,
mm-hmm,
because I think it's very valuable to have it. It is the stopgap. If you don't have a trust, absolutely have a will. Even if you have a trust, the will scoops up anything that was not properly labeled in the trust and
mm-hmm.
says, well, we meant to put it in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's an important element of this. Not everyone needs a trust.
Mm-hmm,
So oftentimes, what I see is people at the front end or the back end of their lives very much value from a trust. If you have kiddos that are, you need to make sure that clear levels of guardianship of what you want to have happen to your assets, how you want it managed for your little kids. That's an
oh,
important time to have a trust because you can get
I
very
guess it
detailed.
is. I
Mhm.
never thought of that.
And distributions on when the money is goes out to the
Mm-hmm,
kids, all that
mm-hmm,
stuff.
mm-hmm.
And then on the other side is your assets are may be of size that it requires more comprehensive type of
Mm-hmm,
planning and
mm-hmm.
detail. So I one thing I would say is when you're considering going in to update your own estate plan is thinking through how much control do I want to have
Mm-hmm.
of what happens after I'm gone?
Yes,
Because a trust gives you endless opportunities
yes,
to control from the grave, as we say,
yes,
and think through what is really valuable and would be protective of the
yeah,
people or the heirs, what would
yeah,
help them long term, and what do I just want to let go of and have it be a clean
right.
thing. So
And so when you talk about controlling beyond the grave, I know that there are families who have, maybe a special needs child,
Mhm.
or maybe they have a kid who's had serious financial issues, or they might have an addiction problem.
Yep.
So you can create a trust for that person inside of the trust to make sure that they don't inherit a bunch of money and then have creditors swoop in and take all of it, or that they don't, end up spending it all on alcohol, drugs, or, a new
Mhm.
Corvette. I mean, there are people that can handle money, that can handle an inheritance, and there are people who need a little help to do that. So I think this is an important thing. You can also, my understanding is that the beneficiaries of a trust can can really avoid a lot of taxes.
Mhm.
That you can inherit money from a trust without the tax. I'm going to say penalties.
Yeah,
That's probably not the right word.
it depends on how it's inherited. So
Uh-huh.
just like we were talking in our tax conversation about married filing jointly is one type of tax
Mhm,
bracket,
mhm,
single filers, head of household, there
mhm.
is also a tax bracket for trusts. And that tax bracket is incredibly compressed.
Okay.
I think it's 15,000, maybe 20,000, 30,000 or more, and it's in the highest bracket of 30 some odd percent. So typically, when I see people thinking through who do we want to leave as a beneficiary for things, leaving a trust as a beneficiary to something like an IRA means that IRA is paying the highest tax rate possible. The whatever the trustees receive after
Mhm.
is free and clear, and that's fine. So for
Uh-huh.
them, they might interpret that as like, oh, great, no taxes involved. But on the other side of that,
Ah,
the taxes were paid at 35%, a very
got it.
high bracket. So, and there's not a, I've seen arguments for both being appropriate. Sometimes
Okay.
simplicity is the best thing. Some like
Yes.
an example, so my husband and I have a 9-year-old. We can't make her the beneficiary of our IRAs right now, right? And
No.
so our option really is to is to leave it in a trust for her,
Yes.
either through our trust or leave it just outright where the trust is going to pay all the taxes and she just gets a chunk through her guardian.
Mhm.
But there's not really another great solution to that in this moment of our lives. And so I think there's times in which you just kind of have to do that.
Yes.
But yeah, weighing those pros and cons and understanding what happens on the other
Yes.
side, I think can
Yes.
help put you in a position of power to make the right choice.
And what you just said about, we're in a different stage of life,
Mhm.
and where you're young and you have young children, um, your estate plan and your whole financial plan will change
Oh
many
yeah.
times before you get to my stage of life.
Hmm.
And that's good. I mean, um, I'm glad I'm not raising small children forever.
Right. And every one of those, there's different tools in the attorney's
Yes,
tool belt to be
yes.
able to pull out and say, I think now let's think about
This
this.
is
Oh,
best
this
what
is
to
what you
do.
want to accomplish. And it's much like financial
Mhm,
planning. They
mhm,
need to know, what are your goals? What do you,
mhm.
ultimately, what would be,
Important. Yeah.
yeah. So that all of those things are so valuable in having a qualified attorney to work with.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, is there anything else I should have asked about? Um, let's see, we've covered having your spouse be the co-trustee
Mhm. Yeah, I
and
think
changing that.
the only other thing I would add is just is if it is hard to talk about our own mortality. It is
Hmm.
hard, it's not fun, especially if you're on the tail end of grieving the loss of a loved one.
Yes,
It is
yes.
very hard to revisit the reality of
Right,
mortality.
right.
And I sometimes I've seen people be motivated by to kind of make this change in their own update by thinking through, what if I don't change anything? What happens? And that can be a conversation you have with your estate planning attorney. What if I don't update anything from here on out? And they can
Mm,
show you, here's the consequences. And that
hmm.
in and of itself can be motivation to say, okay, we're going to do this now.
Yes,
Just like you experienced with your
yes,
family, when things fall through the cracks, it can be painful. It can have ripple effects to people that you care about after you're
yes.
gone, which is the last thing anybody wants in
That's
the
right.
hands of their
And I will say that the difficulties that I experienced with my parents' estate and with Aunt Jean made me very mindful that I did not want this to I didn't want to be the source of that kind
yeah.
of the work, the worry, um the conflict, between children. And with your help, we hired a professional trustee because I said with all of our kids, if you make one person or two people the trustees for managing this, everybody else is going to hate them. I
Mm,
mean,
hard position.
it's a hard position, and regardless of what they do, at some point, someone's going to be upset. And so I just think that it's fabulous when there are people that we can hire to make sure that we have everything in order. And for me, it's a tremendous peace of mind and comfort to know that you know, when we go, they can grieve us and not be traumatized by how we left things in a financial mess for them. At least that's my hope.
Sure. Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And
yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
a good hope that sometimes we don't think through until we have been through this process
Oh,
ourselves
that's
or
probably
someone
true.
else. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
there's
probably true. Yeah.
hope
So
people hear that from you. That's a really
yeah.
good.
So take my word for it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, take care of it ahead of time so you don't have to clean up the mess afterward.
Hmm.
Well, Brenna, again, thank you. This was another tough topic and also tremendously helpful to people who are going through this process. You've given us a lot of good guidance and things to think about as we go forward in this. So I hope people will, um, if you haven't watched some of our other episodes in Life After Caregiving, Going Solo, please check them out because I think that we've covered some difficult ground,
Hmm.
and having this knowledge can make this transition maybe a little more manageable.
That's the
So
hope
thank you
for
so
sure.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Bye for now.